I'm really frustrated with the progressive movement. I don't know what happened and where everybody went. I see this up. I look, there are a lot of issues that we need to tackle in this country, right? There's not one solution. There's many things that we need to do, but we have to prioritize what we want the most. Because if you've noticed, politicians are one-track minded people. You cannot fight two things at the same time. As much as people want to say you can fight this and you can fight this at the same time, you cannot. You pick one battle. Even presidents know this. This is why Barack Obama made the ACA his big thing. And, Trump, Paul Ryan, when he was still leading the House, and Trump, they made the tax reform their big thing. Presidents typically focus on one thing and one thing only because they know that they can only get one thing done. Politicians are one-track minded people, and they only listen to the loudest in the room at the time. What has happened during a health and economic crisis, is all of these progressives have joined in on identity politics. I'm sorry, that's what's happened. I'm just extremely frustrated that right now we're not marching in the streets for Medicare for all and for economic relief. What the hell, guys? What is going on? Why are we marching in the streets to reform police and topple statues right now in the middle of a health and economic crisis? And why doesn't anybody stop and say, whoa, multinational corporations, Nancy Pelosi, the Clintons, Joe Biden, all of them are smiling, they're grinning ear to ear saying, yes, let's talk about statues and police reform. Does any progressive stop to say, wait a minute? Why is the establishment joining in on this? Why are multinational corporations joining in on this? And if they are, should we stop and wonder if we're fighting the right battle at this moment? Because right now, every multinational corporation, I see Whole Foods, they stick a sign out in front of their store saying racism doesn't live here. Because this is the big discussion during a health and economic crisis. During a health and economic crisis, the big discussion, guys, is racism. I'm sorry, of course, I don't want racism either. I'm against racism just as much as the next person's against racism. But during a health and economic crisis, this was our one moment in time. This was our shot, guys. This was it, and it was blown. This was our shot at getting Medicare for all. This was our shot at getting economic reform. If the politicians were going to listen, it was going to be now, in the middle of a health pandemic and an economic crisis. And all of that got squandered away for statues and police reform. I'm sorry, I'm pretty mad about it. I don't know where all the progressives went. I bring this up to my other fellow progressive commentators, and they blow me off and say, no, Kim, racism is the number one thing we need to be fighting today. The establishment won. They got to you. They figured it out. They outsmarted you, and they got to you, like they've done time and time again to everybody else. I don't think people like, for example, I don't think there's the really establishment hacky people like Rachel Maddow. I don't think she's stupid by any means. I think she's very smart, but I think the establishment is smarter. I think they have been able to co-opt brains. They've been able to grease wheels, bribe, incentivize. They know all the triggers to get you in. They know how to do it. They've been doing it for a very, very long time. So they know the right things to say, the right ways to motivate, to get people to fall in line. And what they saw, was Joe Biden. I mean, look, Joe Biden goes and he wins the South. The South never goes Democrat in a general election. So in my mind, it really doesn't, the South, I don't know why the Democrats pay that much attention to what Southern voters want. No offense to those of you in the South, but the South never goes blue in a general election. So, the states that they should have been paying attention to are the swing states, right? Bernie Sanders, I think, really messed up his campaign when he, instead of sticking to we need reform for the working class, we need the middle class to strengthen, we need economic reform, and we need Medicare for all, he deviated from that message this time around. And this time around, he got a lot of advisors that I feel were very extreme in their advocacy. They were Sean King and Linda Sorzar. These are people that are very extreme in their advocacy. And I believe that these types of people that he surrounded himself with changed the direction of his campaign more towards racism, bigotry, sexism. I keep hearing that over and over during the 2020 campaign from Bernie Sanders. All I can hear is, we've got to fight racism, bigotry, and sexism. That's what I heard over and over. So I think his campaign derailed on that. The establishment figured this out when they said, okay, Joe Biden's going to win the South. He is going to sweep the South. He won handedly. So Joe Biden goes and he wins the South. So the establishment has this new narrative that they latch on to, because remember, Joe Biden was painted as the racist at first by Kamala Harris. So Joe Biden then says, so then he wins the South. So then the Democrats realize, oh my gosh, we're onto something here. So they harp on this. Joe Biden wins with Black folks like Joe Biden, even though younger Black folks don't vote for Joe Biden, but they still latched onto this narrative. Joe Biden, Black folks like Joe Biden. And then, so isn't it interesting then that when they latched onto that narrative and now they've just amplified it. So now it's just been their call to action now is, okay, now what we'll do is we'll just we'll harp on the race issue in America. And we will say race is the number one focus of the number one problem of our day is racial issues in America. And they've latched on that, which I don't agree with. Now, people might want to call me a class reductionist. And I say, yes, I am a class reductionist, I guess. I do think that it all boils down fundamentally to economics, that keeping people keeping people, I don't know the right term, but keeping people down, and through various policies throughout history, including making it to where women couldn't own homes and women couldn't have bank accounts, and Black men couldn't own property or vote, all of these different institutionalized bigoted policies fundamentally boil down to decreasing the competition size. So they don't want more people entering the competition, because more people that enter the competition means you have to share the wealth. And what we know is these folks don't like sharing the wealth. We're not keeping our eye on the ball. Instead, we're saying, oh no, we can fight racism and for health and economic reforms all the time. This is what I hear. I can fight for both. We can fight for both. No, you can't. And you're not. So don't tell me you can, because you're not. You're not marching in the I would believe you if you were marching one day in the streets for Black Lives Matter, and then the next day you marched for Medicare for all. And then the next day you marched for we need pandemic relief. I would believe you if that's what was happening. But that's not what's happening. Now, are there some economic messages mixed in? Yes. But the overall message that the establishment is hearing is remove statues, police reform, end racism. So they're grinning from ear to ear because they're thinking, oh my gosh, we just got away. They're sitting there thinking, oh my God, this is the greatest day of my life. You mean they're not asking us for a bunch of money in Medicare for all? Woo! Okay. Yeah, we're going to end racism. That's what we're going to do, guys. I'm going to change. Oh, we're going to change the name of this. Oh, we're going to remove this statue. Oh, we're going to put up some signs saying we're against racism. Uber Eats, they announced, oh, we're going to waive all the fees for Black-owned restaurants, right? So you got all the, who was it that was saying that they might waive the University of California system? Somebody mentioned this. I don't know if it's true. I haven't looked it up. Saying that the University of California system says that they're going to end tuition for Black students, right? So now we've got this movement of what are we going to do for Black folks, rather than what are we going to do for all of us right now that are suffering. Mostly the suffering is coming from poverty, groups that are in poverty. That is the number one most suffering group right now during this pandemic, are those who are in poverty. They're the ones who are most likely to catch the virus. They're the ones that are most likely to suffer. And those people in poverty come in all colors. they predominantly do come in certain colors. So yes, there is that correlation, but it's not cause. So I just don't know what's happening to all these progressives that are sitting there cheering on the establishment's narrative. I mean, they got you guys. You just have to admit that they got you. This is what happened in my mind. The establishment saw in the 2016 election this rising up of this economic movement inside the left wing of the party, right? So they saw the rise of Bernie Sanders, they saw the rise of Medicare for all, the rise of economic reform, things like free college tuition, things that other countries have that are on the left. Social welfare countries, like I'm a big fan of the Scandinavian model. So they see this uprising. They can't have that. That goes against their big money donors. So what they were able to squash Bernie Sanders in the 2016 election through a variety of means, but they can't stop the momentum of this movement. And one thing that I think they found particularly alarming during this 2016 election was the rejection of the identity politics, the rejection of, we don't want to focus on identity politics. We're not buying into your bullshit anymore. We instead are going to focus on Medicare for all and economic reform and college. We want things for the middle class. We want to strengthen the middle class. So they hear this message and they think, oh crap, you mean they're on to us with this identity politics thing? So they went harder and smarter, and they gotcha. They gotcha eventually. And I've seen so many of my fellow progressives now become the latest victims of the establishment. They now have bought into, without realizing it, they have fallen in to the identity racism category where they say that is the number one issue of our time. And then when I say to them, what about Medicare for all? Oh, that's important to me too. But, or I can do both at the same time. No, politicians are one track mind. And right now what you've got is Nancy Pelosi talking about we need to do more for people of color in this country. You've got Joe Biden today announcing his 4-plank bring back what's his Build Back Better platform that he's talking about today, the 4 planks. And the last plank includes something for Black and Brown Americans. This whole, we're going to help build up small businesses for Black and Brown Americans. Nothing about Medicare for all during a health crisis, guys, during a health crisis. Nothing about that. But we're going to give some money to Black and Brown folks to build up small businesses. The small businesses you probably lost, right? Like everybody's going under. So I don't know, it's just it's this pandering. So there's this is what the progressive movement said they wanted. And therefore, this is what we're going to focus on now, because now they've got us all co-opted. Anytime, look, at the end of the day, anytime the establishment is on board with you, when they're grinning from ear to ear, when they're kneeling with you, when they're chanting your slogans, when they're saying this is, yes, we must do this, anytime they're on board with you and on board so easily, I think everybody needs to stop, take a look and say, wait a minute, what's really, are we on the right message here?